Okay, let's talk about Russia and the fallout from the murder of Alexander Dugin. He's kind of a Russian public intellectual. The murder, not of him, but of his daughter recently. She died in a car bomb outside of Moscow. There were some reports that Dugin himself was supposed to be in the vehicle and decided not to go. Anyway, her death has caused a lot of consternation inside of Russia, but more in terms of what the fallout from said assassination will be. So let's go ahead and put this up there on the screen. That Russia is now claiming that the so-called Dugin bomber has escaped to Estonia. They say, quote, if the Kremlin decides to confront Estonia by backing up its demand for the extradition of the alleged suspect with threats, it will put Russia on a collision course with a NATO state. And I think that is exactly why this matters so much. So again, to recap, the FSB is kind of the Russian successor to the KGB, FBI, CIA, whatever, all rolled into one. They say that they solved the murder almost immediately. They're like, oh, we know exactly who this is. It's a Ukrainian woman. She fled to Estonia. Here's all these pictures that we have of her. Did this with her 12-year-old, and then she fled to Estonia after she followed her along. They've got immediately. They were like, we know exactly who it is. A little bit suspicious as to how exactly that happened. But it just so happens that that person, they claim, is connected to the Ukrainian Secret Service, and they're like, actually, this is all in Ukraine, and now this is perhaps a pretext in order to escalate against Ukraine. And also the Estonia part is very scary too. Obviously, Estonia is a NATO ally of the United States. So we have to watch this all very closely. Let's throw the next one up there. As I said, the Russians already officially accusing the Ukrainian special services of actually organizing the killing of Alexander Dugin's daughter. And in terms of the cry out in Moscow itself, there does seem to be state TV and others echoing these accusations. As far as Dugin, we tried to explain this yesterday. It's kind of complicated, which is that he is not, the brainchild of Putin. He's actually very influential here in the West because he knows how to speak English, and he's kind of cultivated Western public intellectuals to try and take him a little bit more seriously. He's even been fired at times by Putin himself and ostracized away from the regime. But at his core, he's kind of a revanchist of the Russian Tsardom, and he wants to restore the Russian Empire and preserve the Russian people, and sees themselves very, very distinct from Europe itself, and a real antagonist, he wanted to split. I think I did a whole monologue on this a couple of months ago if anyone's interested, but he wrote a book in the 90s where he's like, Russian policy should have 3 goals. Number 1, split Britain away from the rest of the EU. And this was written in the 90s. Number 2, Russia should invade Georgia. And number 3, Russia should retake Ukraine. So all 3 of those things actually did happen. Now, as I mentioned before the monologue, the people who are the Russiagate basically level people in Britain like to point to that first one as evidence that it's Russia's fault. The EU, yeah, exactly. They're like Brexit was a Russian plot. They have their own Russiagate version over there. But put that aside, the other 2 actually did happen. So Putin is at the very least familiar with this thinking, and some of his books are recommended. Now, the reason why that matters is that now that he is much more of a cause celeb in Russia, he's a sympathetic figure, his daughter was killed. Not only is he justifying the initial invasion of Ukraine, his daughter was as well, but after his daughter was killed, now let's put this up there. Immediately, he comes out and he says that we need to have revenge against Ukraine and for Russia to push on in its invasion. And what they discuss here specifically is that he wants increased brutality and increase of an invasion within Ukraine. And all of this comes ahead of reporting just a couple of weeks ago that Putin, in terms of his phase of the campaign and what they're all looking at, and U.S. intelligence has effectively confirmed this, is that they want to actually step up and intensify attacks, not only on Ukraine and its civilian infrastructure, but specifically on the port city of Odessa. Odessa is, port from the Black Sea. It's where Ukraine has exported the vast majority of its grain to the world. If Russia can take possession of that on top of Crimea, they not only have much more maritime control, but they cut Ukraine off from arguably the most important economic, lifeline that they even have, considering that's vast majority of their exports and GDP. So what we actually know is that this is all happening right ahead of that. Putin looking for a way to message the war as we approach the official 6-month anniversary. And then actually, Ukrainian Independence Day is coming up soon. And so the US intelligence is actually leaking. They're like, hey, you guys need to prepare. They are planning major attacks on civilian infrastructure. They say that the intensification is going to come right not only in that port area, but also in terms of trying to batten down Ukrainian morale ahead of this. So if you are of the school of thought that this is some like planned attack by Russian authorities and some sort of like 2-for-1 deal in order to make people more sympathetic, it wouldn't be a bad time. We have no idea.
Yeah.
It wouldn't put it past the FSB in the Kremlin. Also wouldn't put it past some people who are in the opposition. It's not like she was beloved by everybody in Russia either.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, we may never know who actually planted this car bomb. And also important to remember, like, Dugin himself was supposed to be in this car. Right. So a lot of speculation that he was really the intended target here, which is even more inflammatory of an action, provocative of an action. Could have been the Ukrainians, could be some internal Russian resistance, partisans, could be the sort of direct, like, Putin allies, could be hardliners who want to force Putin's hand into exactly the actions that Dugin is pushing for now. He called the attack an act of terror, which I think is fair to say, that had been, quote, carried out by the Nazi Ukrainian regime, not fair to say. Right. And then he said, our hearts yearn for more than just revenge or retribution. We only need our victory. My daughter laid her maiden life on its altar, so win, please. The specific calls that are coming on, Russian state TV are for things like attacking Ukrainian government buildings and going directly after officials in Kyiv, going after their sort of security apparatus in Kyiv. So, if your goal was to strengthen the hardliner stance and put pressure on Putin to go even further and commit even, further atrocities than what he's already done, that seems to be the direction that at least the hardliners are trying to take this in.
Seems likely. I mean, all of this, again, just points to even more like Chechen Civil War 2.0, which is that the initial response doesn't work. Then they start to go scorched earth. They try and figure out how exactly to change their military personnel and what exactly the strategy will be, and then grind into attrition. And unfortunately, major consequences for the world, for Russia, and sadly for the Ukrainians. I read a terrible story about these guys who are working in the nuclear power plant literally at gunpoint and are the only Ukrainians, and the Russians have guns to their head and they're like, you better have this plant going up, and they use these nuclear power plants kind of as shields to make sure, because nobody can fire against them, and they're too afraid. It's just a trap, because look, they need the power, and it's also a way in order to control and manipulate Ukraine. So we're entering only that phase of the campaign. And I just, we talked about this in the stocks block, but the energy crisis is still real. It's, we're starting to get to fall. Things in Europe are starting to get cold. The colder and colder it gets, the more Russian gas they're going to need. They may not have AC, but they do all need heating in their houses. And come that time, we could see major, major crunch by the Russians in an outright just cutoff of gas in that area, which would induce a genuine global crisis if something like that happens. So do not rule that out whatsoever. Really now could be just a transitional period. In the future of the war.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.